Our next session is Santal Family to Mill Recall. This illustrated talk on the 409 Ramkinkars has renowned artist Vivan Sundaram in conversation with R.V. Ramani. May I invite you gentlemen to the stage, please?
Hello everybody, and I feel very privileged and honored to share a space with Vivan Sundaram, and I thank Hindu Lit Festival for this. Vivan Sundaram is presently comfortable being called himself as contemporary installation artist. I knew Vivan for a long time since I started making films in the 90s, and met him very briefly in a few occasions, and also seen one of his work in the middle of mid-90s, something to do with empty water bottles, discarded water bottles, and he done some work with that, and I remember seeing those images, and that time it struck me that he is working on something to do with, kind of challenging the notion of aesthetics, beauty, and kind of forcing and bringing it right into your contemporariness and kind of bringing in politics into it. And I quite like that, by breaking an aesthetics, he creates another kind of aesthetics. And I quite like that kind of a work of his. And last year, I was given this opportunity to work with him. And he called me over and said that he's working on a new project, which is called 409 Ramkinkars. And he asked me whether I could make a documentary film on that. So this is where I come in now. And I jumped on the occasion, and then because the work is based on Ramkinkar's works, and I am very fascinated by Ramkinkar's works also. And Vivan is basically going to talk about that project. And the title of this particular session, which is Santal Family to Mill Recall, is the title of the film that I'm making on him, on this project. And the film is almost ready, will be ready for screening next month. And so that's where it is. It's going to be a feature-length long, 2.5 hour long documentary. And basically, now the session is going to be Vivan's, and he's going to present the way he worked on this mill. It is 409 Ramkinkars. So over to Vivan. Yeah. And at the end of the session, presentation of Vivan, we will try and show a small clip from the film so that you can get a feel of what it is. Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me now to this very famous Hindu Lit Festival. And as Ram said, maybe one doesn't believe in competition, but it will be as challenging and as exciting as the Jaipur Lit Festival. I've been invited to one other festival, as it said, 60 festivals take place, and this was rather a homely one, because the venue of the festival was one house away from my house in Kasauli. But of course, the festival is named by a very famous late writer called Khushwant Singh. So it's the Khushwant Singh Kasauli Lit Festival. It was in the club. And of course, the atmosphere in the club with the nouveau riche, and as somebody from Chandigarh said, I've never met more Sardars from Chandigarh than I'm meeting here in the club. And of course, the Maharaja of Patiala also came. So that was the tenor of that. But I thank Prasanna for inviting me and allowing me to speak about a contemporary project, which artists always want to speak about what they are doing. As we know that art lit festivals are increasingly interested in dialogue with writers with other disciplines, and we've already had a fair number of examples. I myself have been interested in dialogue, in collaboration, and as Ramani has said, that I'm very pleased that he is here to dialogue with me, because a very special relationship developed in this project. I knew a little bit about him. I regret that I haven't still seen his film, but I will be seeing them. But Ramani, to my mind, I will say this, maybe I shoot my mouth, that he's the most exceptional documentary filmmaker, not only in Chennai, but in India. And he holds a very special relationship to a very radical approach to the documentary. And here the documentary goes beyond just simply documenting it. And the project, as you'll see, is a project which really required more than a document. The document is certainly part of the whole wish to archive material, and that this project is not easy to repeat again. And so the document was one part of it. But I was very keen, and when my good friend Ashish Rajadhaks, one of the most important film historians and theorists, suggested, why don't you ask Ramani? So I said, of course, will he be interested? And I can't tell you how interested he's been, how passionate he's been, and we'll talk a little bit about his method. But this is what Ashish Rajadhaks said about him. He's the master of the handheld camera. And he held that camera in such exceptional ways, and the film will be shown, and it'll be a long film. I shall be speaking about this this work, and it's titled ambiguously 409 Ram Kinkars. And the idea of putting 409 is, in fact, to put a question that it is a contemporary project, because you think that Ram Kinkar work will be about Ram Kinkar. It's very much about Ram Kinkar, but it is about my retake on Ram Kinkar. I've done another series called Retake of Amrita. In one sense, both Amrita and Ram Kinkar are one of the pioneers of modern Indian art. And I begin with these two iconic photographs of him. Ram Kinkar was the classic modern artist, the hero artist, you can say the male artist, and he had such incredible persona, and very often artists develop their persona and their image through how they look. And in fact, that's exactly what Amrita Shergill also did, and she had the fortunate factor of her father photographing her from the day she was born. And through my representing his work, now photographic historians call him one of the pioneers of modern Indian photography. But Ram Kinkar, as you can see from these two very dynamic photographs, that he looks wild, and he looks gentle and humane, and that kind of image about him continues. And I very intentionally insert two figures that followed him, also considered to be one of the, if not the pioneers, but major figures of modern Indian art. And in a way, history has been written in such a way that the progressive group which emerged post-independence is considered by many people, important historians as well, as the beginnings of modern Indian art. But people have been trying to correct that in different ways. Ghulam Sheikh, who's here, has worked on Vinod Bihari Mukherjee, and Ram Kinkar, to my mind, is really truly the first great Indian modernist. Of course, he had a great figure that supported him, and there's nobody less than Rabindranath Tagore, who made his modernist watercolors. And so this aspect of theatricality, which you see that funny collage that Sousa did, he put some false teeth and he kind of grins, and he's famous for his quite provocative works, both in sexual terms. And of course, Hussain, in a very gentle and benign way, as another pioneer of modern Indian art. I will, at the end of the talk, bring in two works of Ram Kinkar Baij and Hussain, both done in 1950 at the beginning of the founding of the Indian Republic. On what grounds can I assume to say that I wish to identify with Ram Kinkar, to pay homage, to be critically inspired by him? Although Ram Kinkar was predominantly an expressionist modernist, it was his restless search through many isms of the modern, covering a large array of subjects, and his inconsistency I have been greatly attracted to. There is a long tradition where younger artists have worked on older artists, expressing their own contemporary identity by reinterpreting the earlier artists. So I'm not that kind of artist that paints, as I will say it in a very gentle way, as Raghu Rai most eloquently spoke, that my heart is in the lens, my mind is not important. Well, I have a small mind and I try to include that mind in the making of my work. So I'm a much more self-conscious artist, and I have critiqued a notion of individuality and the notion of authorship. Ram Kinkar said that he rode two creative horses as a sculptor and a painter. In a collective project titled 409 Ram Kinkars with theatre directors, I proposed that Ram Kinkar rode a third horse as theatre director, actor, and scenographer. And that has actually never been spoken about because theatre was not recorded. Fortunately, a fair amount of Ram Kinkar's work is recorded, apart from the sad aspect of a lot of his works are destroyed. And so therefore the aesthetics of installation art enable me to represent paintings, sculptures in spatial and theatrical terms. And I'll speak more about that when we move on. Now these two works are certainly considered to be the two most iconic, most important sculptures of a heroic kind done in India, and there's very few from these two dates. You can see 1938 to 19 Milcall images them as two working class women. Initially, they do not seem to be different. The temporal and spatial coalesce, but it is in the slow pre-modern gait of the former, that's the tribal, and the dynamic speed, almost with flying energy of the latter, that marks the difference and the change. And so to confront these two works is no easy task for an artist who's not Bengali. I don't think that Ram Kinkar was a Bengali chauvinist at all, but there are many Bengalis who like to say that he is ours as a Bengali artist. So I proposed a collective studio to in fact find a way that how can I represent these two great iconic works in a completely different approach and method. And as I've suggested already, that I have believed in collaborative work in what's called the collective studio. So I invited 5 young sculptors, some were just students who had finished, and I said, see, these are the images of these two great works. You interpret them in your own way, but it should be about 12 inches in height, and it will be made in clay and fired in terracotta. And here I wanted to create a field. So this is a counter to the singular iconic work of Ram Kinkar. And here, the one and the many shifts the axis of the powerful verticality of the figures made in cement to a horizontal plane of terracotta figures. The view of hundreds of figures in almost frenetic movement proposes a complementary energy to Ram Kinkar's work. A new force field is created by coming together of the tribal and the worker in their spontaneous unity and diversity. Each group is differentiated by the color of the clay and individuated in the manner of making. Their coming down the steps can be read as a mobilization or as a multitude, a frenetic dance. Movement was central to Ram Kinkar's work, and here congregation carries the freedom of a self-organized anarchist statement. The viewer becomes immersed in the crowd. The purposeful walk of the family, sculpted in a naive and realist manner, gliding down the steps over rugged terrain, is animated by the low angle shot. The energetic woman answers the bugle of the mill call in the strident posture of moving leftward. And as stated, that by 56, the tribal had become part of the proletariat, and as Ram Kinkar very perceptively called it milk call, and he said, I will make not a man and a woman and the family for the tribal, but I will make them as two women. Ram Kinkar worked in many modernist idioms, and I told the young students that, look, this is also a class of pedagogy of art history I am engaged in, and I wish you to keep on thinking in a very open way and interpret his figures through all the isms that he did. And people have said, well, he didn't have a singular style, and that was, in fact, to my mind, his great strength, because modernism was actually in the process of making. There was no history that there was to modernism. Cubism appears in many works of Ram Kinkar. With his interest in movement and speed, the workshop explored the theme by applying futurist forms. Futurism was a movement started by the Italians just at the beginning of the First World War, that there was a new velocity, a new energy, and I included that. Now we come to the aesthetic that I have been engaged for well over 2 decades, and that is the found object or the ready-made. Now the ready-made or the found object, its history today, I would say, if you want to be very precise, it's 102 years old. And that comes from the very famous artist Duchamp, the French artist, who said that the found object, if I place it on a pedestal and I call it a work of art, you'll have to accept it as a work of art. And his very famous work, which he showed in the Armory Show in New York, was a urinal, and he called it the fountain. Of course, the judges threw it away, and it was smashed, and he signed it as a pseudonym, R-M-U-T-T-R Mutt. So R. Mutt's work was destroyed, but Duchamp recreated it, and certainly he has a stature which, post-60s when he died, is more influential than Picasso. Here I do the Santhal family using basically wood as a material. And all these are found objects, and the aspect of wood being deeply connected to the forests and the wood that is central to the tribal. And all these wooden objects are what the peasants use. Grounded in their materiality, forms are distinctly modern, unlike the realism of Ram Kinkar's earlier work. Although traditional sculpture, Ram Kinkar sculptor, and as I said, he rode 2 horses. The phallic head of the male figure with a deep Krishna blue is propped up on a Brancusi-like totem. Tribal paint their bodies. I transferred Ram Kinkar's abstract painting on the legs, which you see those lines, onto that. So I'm linking the relationship between painting and sculpture, which he kept, as I said, 2 separate horses. But today's, and quotations are found images, and today's aesthetic allows this crossover. Excuse me, can I have some? You saw Milk Call, and I spoke about the aspect of speed that Ram Kinkar was interested in. And Ram Kinkar's larger-than-life Milk Call is said to reference Soviet heroic sculpture of the proletariat. Taking a cue from his wish to show movement and wind in cement, I took on the central vector of mobility in modern times, the motor car, to assemble 2 female workers with automobile parts. The torso is a fuel tank, exhaust pipes are the legs, and the head of the woman looks back as a Picasso-like simplification. And a slight aside, then when the great master Moshair Nandalal Bose was watching him, and he used to often work in the night, so he said, why are you making both the women move forward in unison? Why don't you turn one of their heads to look back? And Ram Kinkar said, yes, Master Moshair, and he broke the head and turned it around. And you can see how this fuel tank has, as I said, Picasso-like kind of abstraction. And finally, the the cement towel that was there. He had a boy, if you should remember, supporting it. And I took the aspect of wind and light and then introduced these LED lights into the sculpture. There's also a reference to those interested in art history. The blue shapes that you see are a reference to the great American sculptor who actually coined the word mobile sculpture, Alexander Calder. And Calder came to Shantiniketan, and Ramkinkar said, what a great sculptor, what a great artist he is. So I bring that quotation in. Ramkinkar was a collaborative production with theatre directors Anuradha Kapoor and Shantanu Bose from the National School of Drama, performed at the Indira Gandhi National Centre of the Arts in New Delhi. Using the promenade form which Anuradha has been developing, also referred to as immersive theatre, the play moved across 5 locations in IGNCA. And here you see the milk call pulled by 2 working women. Both announce the play to start as well as its exit, and this is where they're going out. And so you see this light. This work I call the plough. The form of this highly simplified sculpture in modernist terms are made of large tubes used with bore wells for carrying water. The figure is androgynous. The wooden plough oscillates and the pedestal moves. So I continue this metaphor of Ramkinkar's passion to have movement in his work. And another little aside, he said Amrita Shergill, in fact, in the same year as the Santhal family was painted the South Indian villagers going to market, one of the few works that she had a group of people. And he said, she poses a figure, there's no movement in them. So that's, in a sense, my kind of assertion to push the aspect of movement. And I want to show you the work that I'm referring to, and that's called the Harvester. Actually, it should be called the Thresher, according to Shiv Kumar. And I want you to notice the remarkable abstraction that Ramkinkar has done. From the feet right up to the armpit, he's made a straight line. And of course, he had the courage. Now that's another matter where feminists could critique that why should a peasant woman be represented nude and also headless. But that was the kind of freedoms that he gave to himself, and that is my interpretation of that straight line curving, and of course my figure is androgynous. Now, this is a work that's fascinated me because Ramkinkar, as I said, is known to be a great realist sculptor who dealt with social themes, but actually his work traverses a great range of isms, as I've said, and I think it's not really fully been analyzed how he crossed over. And as Shiv Kumar said, many of his works are destroyed, like this extraordinary work where he's standing next to this sculpture. There's a plaster work as well, and there you see its tragic, broken self. And I thought that this work, I must represent it exactly as it is, and I had the dimensions from Jayappa Swami's book, and this is my version of it. So from speed, I decided to call it spring, and the yellow color also shows that. And of course, once again, the fact that this sculpture is also a mobile in a different sense, it will move as sculpture, and this is how it moved in the play, that in fact this actor, and when he was asked to do it, he said, oh, I'm actually very seriously a cyclist. I kind of almost semi-professionally cycle. So he cycles to the entrance of the play where everybody is gathered to enter, and he inaugurates the play. Now, these 3 titles refer to the work that I'm coming to, and I've just kept it as a pause. And now the first is Ramkinkar's work called The Birth of Krishna. Now, this painting is done in 1950 as the date states. Possibly this could be the most brutal painting that Ramkinkar did. This can be seen as a reflection of the recent past, of the violence and the tragedy of the partition of Bengal, a dismemberment and a fracturing of the body politic. The formal structure has a triptych format for the action to happen in 3 related and different locations in time. The staccato action is fast moving. The outline uses both black and white to further animate the action. And I will now come to Hussein's painting, which is also supposedly done in the same year. And there is a different kind of more poetic use of the expressionist idiom, and certainly not so violent. But if you see closely, the paintings are both on an epic scale and have a triptych format, which proposes a complex narratives at play. Hussein's expressionism is less violent, but the upturning of the figures, the jostling and wedging into each other of elements, speaks of displacement. The expressionist black outline in Ram Kinkar's painting in Hussein is more an outline separated by the white of the canvas that makes the figures look like cutouts. And I then took a leap into a kind of comment on art history, which artists like to have the privilege to do. And of course, Ghulam Sheikh is both an art historian as well as an artist, so he has greater credibility to make these leaps. But I'm not an art historian and never taught, but I took this leap. And you can see how amazing, you would say, this is the work almost of one artist. And I think that this connecting the two is also, I'm making a particular political point in terms of art history, as I said earlier on, that Hussein and Souza had no connection with Shantiniketan. They equated it with the Bengal school and revivalism. And one has to now say that the founders of modern Indian art really are these people, and that Hussein and Souza and the others consider themselves to be the kind of post-independence pioneers, very rarely acknowledging those that were before. And you can see again, I brought the triptych aspect of it with the line, and this now is a prop used in the space called the Twin Art Gallery, which is a space about 120 feet long and 40 feet wide, and it has 12 distinct spaces. And here there's a whole discussion, when we're not getting into, of how today's scenography, or what was called the backdrop, enters the foreground, and in fact informs the story or the narrative of the play. And in fact, Brecht's theater designer, stage designer, often proposed things while he was working on his plays, and Brecht said, okay, we'll change it according to your set. So here in the 12 spaces, each of them refers to different paintings, and in this space 30 actors perform these 12 scenes on a loop of about 3 minutes each, and about 120 to 150 people come, and you're entering it as if it was a mela. Here is, I can't go into all of them, but here is his work, as you can see, Picnic. And there was this actress who had actually learned gymnastics, and I created a central pole, and her garment also has a reference to the painting. And she does some extraordinary acrobats and also makes some very strong statements. So this section was directed by Shantanu Bose, and in the Matighar, it's a central hall. I made what is an armature, as I said. He used steel as an armature, and then cement was thrown on it. So he was a kind of like an action painter, throwing cement and then gradually built up the thing. And this very fine actor performs this. Thank you. Now, can we have Ramani's film, and then if there's time, we'll have a discussion and talk to the public.
Yeah, so this is the Santal family, and you can see there it's almost 8, 9 feet, 10 feet high. These are different. And this is the milk hall. Okay. So this aspect of, size, it's almost 9, 10 feet big, and the energy and the movement of it. So these are two remarkable, iconic figures of modern Indian art, of sculpture, which never attempted before. This is really early 38. And so in approaching this work, I decided that I will, make it of terracotta. So this is my great army of the Santhal family in Milkowal. The fact that they are workers and the congregation, of course, makes it a force, and so it could look like any march, is making a statement. But they are also marching with a great sense of abandon, movement. So I intentionally, made them feel this angle, that angle, some coming down the steps, and a few even turning back, like they're going the other way. So on 22nd to 23rd, almost final dress rehearsal and then the dress.
I was to open us.
But we had to restrict that number.
Wouldn't you say? What do you feel about that? Open rehearsals?
People can also don't have to see a programmed, organized open rehearsal. They can also see fragments.
Exactly. And they have to have the patience. And most people who come to see that, you rejig, you stop, they should be ready for
That's a very nice idea.
And also it breaks all the mystique. One hand and
That holy circle again of opening a person.
And when we call them earlier on, where we will say you are not to expect a full performance, we'll stop.
ये नाटक शुरू किए तभी हमारा पहला एनकाउंटर ये था कि रामकिंकर बेस जो है उनका परिवार जो है, फैमिली जो है, सिर्फ एक बिस्तर के नीचे ही है। सब कुछ उनके बिस्तर के नीचे मतलब आपको मिल जाएगा, चाहे मतलब वो बड़े बड़े पोर्ट्रेट्स हो या मतलब कलर हो या कुछ भी हो या बीड़ी सिगरेट मतलब शराब की बोतल हो। बट ये जो चीज़ है कि मैनरिज्म एक एक्टर के लिए एक बेसिक चीज़ होता है कि अगर किसी कैरेक्टर को करना है तो उसका एक मैनरिज्म पकड़ना है।
Nihal, he's organizing his light work. It's called now Mill Recall rather than Mill Call.
को सूर्य की रोशनी में फिर कभी नहीं देख पाओगे।
Five minutes to go.
Okay. Quick question to you. What for you is installation art, and how do you come about this kind of form? You started as a painter, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I crossed over in the early 90s to make things and objects with the found material, as I said. And a few years later, I did a work which is considered to be the first example of installation art called Memorial, which was in response to what happened of the destruction of the Babri Masjid and the violence in Bombay. And I based my work on a single photograph taken by Hoshi Jal of the Times of India. And that was an installation about 60 feet by 20 feet in the IFAX gallery. And I felt that this moment also coincided with a great crisis in India, a whole shift in what we understood to be a modern secular nation. And I'm very pleased that it coincided with my not painting as painter for 30 years and more, and had already moved to the object. And the aspect of installation art allowed me to engage with the space, with its environment, and installation art has the word built into it, theatricality. And subsequently, I did a large project in the Victoria Memorial, which its book is to come out. That was in 1998, so almost 18 years later, a big volume will come out. But when I start thinking about Ram Kinkar and in great admiration of him, I've been, as I said, attempted collaboration and crossovers, not all very successful. But I then proposed that because, as I mentioned, that he was painter, sculptor, as well as a theatre person, that cannot this transference from installation art have embedded into it the set which is then proposed by the artist to move the narrative and then to do a full 2-hour production. And such an event cannot really be repeated. And as I said earlier on, Ramani was approached. And I would like to ask him now a question or a response that his, as I said, he's the master of the handheld camera, and where the aspect of process, of being immersed in the production, how did you, Ramani, kind of equate this, what was our project, and find that some things you have made films on, political filmmaker like Anand Patwardhan, you have dealt with the cyclone here. What was this art project proposing to you that opened something in your aesthetics?
I would actually use this quote from Raghu Rai. He used the word called darshan. In fact, it struck me also because what you proposed to me was like a darshan to me. Because I am interested in your work. I remember your work. I remember the disruptive quality of your aesthetic, the kind of the way you disrupt things. And I wanted to engage with that at some level. And in fact, many times I tried to meet you, but it never happened. Yeah. Even the conversation didn't happen.
And I couldn't see your film also.
Yeah.
There was some
so this became like a darshan. So when you said, I said, wow. Then when he said Ram Kinkar, I said, first thing I want to do is go to Shantiniketan. I went straight from his house to Shantiniketan and saw those works. And I came back and told him, yes, I'm doing the work. And, Ram Kinkar's, these two work that he saw, Santal Family and Milk, is amazing. It's like it does something to you when you watch it because the kind of energy and buoyancy and kinetic energy that he brings into a sculpture like that is too fascinating. And what he did with that is also too fascinating. And especially that using the motor car part of it, it's quite amazing work. And in terms of what you talk about handled work, it is a question of, again, a connection. Sometimes you do handled work, nothing comes out right. And sometimes you you just get it right, you just get hooked. It's like, it is a kind of connection you manage to achieve in filming as a cinematic grammar. And when that happens, and everything works in rhythm, it's almost like a dance. And so the image becomes a kind of a metaphor of a dance, the way you move and kind of compose and keep with the energy of the whole thing. So that's the thing. I mean, I work for that, and sometimes you get it, and sometimes you don't get it. So that's how I see it, handheld camera.
Yeah, and what was very interesting is that the theatre aspect of it with Anuradha Kapoor and also Shantanu Bose, who believe very much, again, in a very open form of production, as was mentioned in the short quote there. So it's not that they are the singular director and they are directing and nobody else can be there, plus they are directing the actors in a very authoritarian way. There's very much a dialogic approach. And I think that the way Ramani and Anuradha would say, we've been rehearsing for 3 hours and we turn around and he's still there shooting. So his capacity to so embed himself, to be part of that immersive process was extraordinary. And the way, as I said, the aspect of crossing over from each space to different mediums, and where the audience also, like as I said, in the Twin Art Gallery, 12 performances are going on, 30 actors. It is a mela, it is chaos. Some people found it's just too much. I mean, because you're not seated comfortably in a chair and there's a proscenium march and you're, enjoying it. So precisely, it was our intention to jostle people, and you get a fragment. You get involved in one lot, and maybe of the 12, you only see 5 of them or 7 of them. And I think that did irritate people, because they expect something where they'll see it from beginning to end. But this non-linear method, this aspect of you choosing the time that you want to, and you have 12 plays in front of you, and then intentionally I propose this, that the lights will go off, as if there's a power failure. And then everybody takes out their phones and they have their light in it, and we had some lights. So then people slowly move out. So that is how we found a way of exiting from that. But I think that this relationship, as I said, to a creative interpretation of our production, which is a collective one, is a very important aspect for me, because I think that translation into another medium is absolutely essential to what is called site-specific installation. As I mentioned, I did a site-specific installation in the Victoria Memorial in 1998, and that time a documentary film was made, but a catalog will now come out. But I think that obviously that site-specific installation, the entire work is destroyed. So it's the translation, and the translation in what number of mediums. And somehow for me, even if it's 18 years later, that this book will come out where there'll be long texts, that I think that even if installation art, as I said in Memorial, started in '92, there's still very little theorizing, very little articulation of what installation art is. And sometimes it's not bad that it takes 18 years for a kind of very critical analysis of my work and as of locating what installation art is, and that this project then moves across into theatre.
Yeah, one of the questions that, I wanted to use it as a trump card, which I want to ask you. You actually revealed it in the sense that, you mentioned this, when I had attended a session of Vivan just about a month back in Delhi, where he was presenting his earlier images and what he does with photography, using Photoshop and all kinds of things, and now he kind of reworks on a photograph. Then in fact, again, I would remember Raghu Rai, he said that the photograph is ultimate historical evidence, and what he actually does is kind of keeps, almost like disrupting it and kind of giving new perspective to it by bringing in other elements. And in fact, the work that you referred to, Oshi Jal's photograph, I mean, when he showed that, I wish it can be shown today, but it is not here. That's my image. Okay. And there is this man lying dead on the floor, and it's a very stark image. And what Vivan does is, he creates a series of images from that, extreme, sorry? Oh, you're not able to hear. Okay, sorry. No, so this image, what Vivan, the way I remember now, is that he creates a series of images from that, some like stark contrast, and then he juxtaposes something else. And, the kind of thing that he kept on, those images kept on coming in his presentation. And I was very moved, completely moved. Oshi is also a friend of mine, by the way. So there is another, maybe that's the reason that you also connect to that. And if you refer that as a strong element in your work, where you call into, shifting into the idea of, installation art, I think it's a very powerful work. And what it creates in you is a kind of coming to terms with violence and the kind of helplessness that you experience, and also trying to overcome that. That all kinds of mixture of kind of emotion that comes together in that series of images. I would love to see it again sometimes.
Yeah. Well, this work, is it time already?
Yeah, we have already said 5. What is it?
There's a way, we go about re-signifying the past. Okay, your work here. And in the city of the statues, what happens is, what he has done is, he is not re-signifying the past, but he's talking about situation where people are re-signifying the past, the kind of statues which are coming up. So in this overall commemorative praxis, whether it happens at an elitist level in these installation pieces, or it is happening out there in the street, okay, the way things are remembered, where things are reimagined, I would like to ask you, what's your objective in reimagining Ramkinkar at this moment? Where do you go? Take us from here.
Yeah,
I can understand the popular culture thing, what it is doing,
Yeah.
and why Ghulam, painted that in a very dark sense. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Well, first is the notion of authorship, and that to rework another great artist and a great iconic artist is to unpack this great artist, which then often great artists get frozen. There are art historians who critique it. But I think that the artist becomes both a person who's interested in the archive, and that this form of installation art and the retaking of it then brings a new contemporary aesthetics for the viewer then to can go back to that work. So there are two sets of works that are positioned next to each other. And I think this dialogue, these questions, are very essential to the development of understanding art and of working, and also the notion of authorship. That's very important for me, a critique of it.
We saw this performance also there on the platform there in the wall, and our Jogen Chaudhary married to pass away, and big drama was created. What we experienced there when witnessing the performance there in the entire production, what you presented there, going through the various galleries, etc., and then he's documenting now. Now that experience of documenting now, what we see, whatever glimpse we saw, they are totally different. My own experience of having seen it there, getting very excited about it, the performance, second time, third time, and then now it comes as an art form through his film, and your talk is totally different then.
No, but that's exactly
Yeah.
that experience in that context, and of course you must give him the chance to show
Of
his
course,
full-length
yeah.
film, and that it opens a whole lot of spaces and process of production which you don't see in the end product. So I think that's a very important part. I think today people are more and more interested in process as well as the end product.
Both Vivan and Ramani, that was beautiful. Ramani, the film, I'm waiting to see it. It's so tender, the way you interact with the characters who are working on this performance. But the question I wanted to ask both of you was, why are you going back to Ramkinkar at this point in history? Can you share a little bit more about that?
If I can answer it, I'm very clear that a kind of historical reference for me is very important in the kind of work that I have done, and that the kind of figure that Ramkinkar was, and the aspects of both his social commitment, his interested in language, his interested in continuously questioning and experimenting. In a sense, everything of his work is sort of incomplete. There are failures. And I think all these resonate very much in my own work. And I think that we give too much importance to a notion of an artist whose work is got a linear development, it doesn't question, it doesn't disrupt, and he provides a wonderful base to go back to a historical moment, an historical moment of modernity, which is questioning so many things, and which to a great extent is written out in terms of what it did and what it questioned. And I like that identification, and it's not a problem for me if they say, but finally Ram Kinkar's work remains much greater than yours. That's not an issue. I think it's a new medium and a new audience that goes to look at the work. Both the iconic works in their different manifestations are, for me, in their representation, not lost, but they express an energy, a movement. And if the 409 Ram Kinkars are very much of a kind of contemporary, spontaneous coming together of people, that it isn't the organized left that brings the people together. The people at certain moments of crisis come together. And in some sense, there is a sense of movement. There's a kind of Bakhtian kind of energy and explosion. And I think that that is a kind of contemporary politics which, taking an old-fashioned medium like terracotta, but in the way it's been installed, expresses those things. And I think it's important to say that, yes, they are also about a future.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we have to wrap this up. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Yeah.